You've been fighting the Harkonnens for decades. My family's been fighting them for centuries.
By taking Arrakis from the Harkonnens and making it ours, he sets the stage for a war.
Hundreds of years we've traded blood for blood. No more. I need to see it in your eyes. You're not human, they're brutal. My desert. My Arrakis. My Dune.
We gave them something to hope for.
That's not hope!
I don't care what you believe, I believe.
May thy knife chip and shatter.
Hey guys, what's happening? Niyat here with Film Comics Explained, and today we're diving into both parts 1 and 2 of Denis Villeneuve's adaptation of Frank Herbert's Dune. While I have an expansive playlist covering all the major concepts, players, factions and organizations in the franchise, from the Fremen, the Sandworms, the Spacing Guild, the Bene Gesserit, Mentats, the Harkonnens, the Atreides, the Sardaukar, the God Emperor, Emperor Shaddam Corrino, and more, links in the description. My aim with this video is to explain what happens in both films in relation to the lore from the books. I'm also going to explain the main differences between the book and films in the third and final section of the video, at the very end.
See possible futures all at once. And in so many futures, our enemies prevail. But I do see a way.
In a galaxy where humanity has existed for over 10 millennia, mankind has branched out to colonize many planets, governed by aristocratic houses under the guidance of the imperious House Guerrilla. While there are many more revealed throughout the series of the books, for the purposes of this breakdown of Book 1 and the two-part adaptation, we'll focus on House Atreides, House Harkonnen, House Guerrilla, referred to as Houses Major, and House Venring, a House Minor. At the heart of this interstellar chess game is the desert jewel Arrakis, the only source of the coveted spice melange. This substance not only promises to extend lifespans and prescient abilities, but is also the linchpin of space travel, monopolized by the Spacing Guild. Its navigators, high on spice, employ fold space technology for instantaneous galactic voyages, a dazzling feat of prescience over physics. This was all the result of the Butlerian Jihad, a crusade against the thinking machines that once enslaved humanity 10 millennia ago, culminating in their obliteration. For more information on that, check out my video on the Butlerian Jihad. The Void birthed the spice-dependent guild navigators and the Mentats, humans trained to mimic the logical prowess of computers. It also gave rise to the Bene Gesserit, a shadowy matriarchal order with the air of witchcraft, wielding powers honed through epochs of genetic manipulation and rigorous training.
If you had been unable to control your impulses, we could not let you live.
Their quest for the Kwisatz Haderach, a male Reverend Mother with unparalleled prescient abilities, underscores their ambition to navigate not just space and time, but the very evolution of humanity. Arrakis itself is a crucible of survival, its deserts home to the Fremen tribes, whose societal norms, a blend of martial prowess and water conservation, are as harsh as their environment. Here, water is a currency of honor, and the giant sandworms, integral to the creation of spice, reign supreme. Woven into the fabric of Fremen belief is the prophecy of a male messiah, courtesy of Bene Gesserit influence, promising a future where Arrakis blooms anew. This intricate interplay of power, survival and prophecy sets the stage for an epic that challenges the cosmos. At the epicenter is Paul Atreides, the son of Duke Leto and his consort Lady Jessica, a member of the enigmatic Bene Gesserit Sisterhood. The Order, adept in roles ranging from truthsayers to advisors, hides its innumerable societal contributions in mystery, all while pursuing a singular grandiose project, a 10 millennium-old eugenics program aimed at refining the human species. Beneath their veneer of surface lies a relentless pursuit of human perfection, with Paul unwittingly cast at the forefront of this interstellar endeavor, setting the stage for a revolution that promises to recalibrate humanity's trajectory.
His sight is barely awakened, and now he goes into the fire.
Part 1 opens with Chani, a daughter of the desert and the Fremen, unfurling the history and existence of her people on the arid expanse of Arrakis. Before even her first breath, the tyrannical Harkonnens held sway over the sands. The Fremen inhabit the desert planet Arrakis, also known as Dune. Long overlooked by the rest of the Imperium and considered backward savages, in reality, they are an extremely hardy people that exist in large numbers. The Fremen had come to the planet thousands of years before the events of the first novel as the Zen Sunni Wanderers, a religious sect in retreat. As humans in extremis, over time, they adapted their culture and way of life to survive and thrive in the incredibly harsh conditions of Arrakis. Their people are distinguished by their fierce fighting abilities and skill at survival in this environment. With water being such a rare commodity on the planet, their culture revolves around its preservation and conservation. Residing in siege communities, the Fremen of Arrakis were governed by knaves and adhered to a trial-by-combat justice system, with victors assuming responsibility for the defeated's family. Their secrecy was maintained through spice bribes to the Spacing Guild, and they embarked on a long-term terraforming project. Each siege featured a Sayadina, akin to a Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother, highlighting their spiritual depth influenced by the Bene Gesserit planted myths, including a Messiah legend. Revering sandworms as deities called Shai Hulud, the Fremen mastered worm riding, contributing to their mystique. Their culture, deeply intertwined with water conservation and the spice melange, reflected their adaptation to Arrakis' harsh conditions, evident in their unique stillsuit technology for moisture reclamation and the communal importance of water. Fremen society was characterized by a strong emphasis on survival, combat readiness, and a profound spiritual connection to their environment, with the spice melange integral to their diet, culture, and prescient enhanced combat abilities.
Long exposure to spice has given the tribe blue eyes.
When it comes to the Harkonnens, after many centuries toiling as a house miner, their influence gradually rose within the Landsraad. This was due mostly to shrewd manipulation of the whale fur market, primarily accomplished by Baron Dmitri Harkonnen and his son Vladimir. The aforementioned Landsraad, a prominent assembly representing the Great Houses, emerged notably in the early Carino Empire era post-Butlerian Jihad. Governed by the High Council and under the Emperor's oversight, it served as a platform for the houses to negotiate trade, form alliances, or engage in Canly, a formal vendetta process that enabled disputes to be resolved without harming innocent bystanders. It aimed to safeguard the Great Houses from the Imperial House's potential targeting and elimination. House Harkonnen built its power on maximizing production output and minimizing production expenses by ignoring economically ethical behavior. Indeed, their governing was based upon a simple foundation of fear and terror that was used in governance, in the day-to-day running of the Harkonnen household, and in controlling their armies. With a social order based on treachery and punishment, soldiers rose through the ranks through deceit, trickery, and, if necessary, assassination. In approximately 10,130 AG, House Harkonnen won the Siradar fief of Arrakis. This meant their responsibility was now to mine the spice melange and supply it to the universe. Through their persecution of the Fremen, the Harkonnens managed to pay the tax they owed to the Emperor, as well as keep a substantial amount for themselves. By 10,191 AG, the Harkonnens, now led by Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, managed to amass considerable wealth through spice mining.
Their cruelty to my people is all I've known.
The Fremen have essentially been trying to rid themselves of the Harkonnens, but to no avail. Recently, however, the Padishah Emperor Shaddam Karina IV ordered them to leave Arrakis, making Chani wonder who their new rulers will be. Transitioning to the planet Caladan, we find Paul Atreides, the young heir of House Atreides, having breakfast with his mother, Lady Jessica, the esteemed concubine of Duke Leto. As a devoted adherent of the Bene Gesserit, a cabal teetering on the edge of the religious and the mystical, Jessica is knee-deep in imparting the esoteric disciplines of her order, a legacy of power and prescience to her son.
House.
Come here. Kneel.
The Order, also known as the Sisterhood, were an ancient and adept organization consisting of all women spies, nuns, scientists and theologians that used genetic experimentation, galactic political interference, and religious engineering to further their agenda. Hoping to guide the human race with the advent of their chosen one, the Kwisatz Haderach, their actions had a major impact on the evolution of humanity. The Bene Gesserit essentially undergo extensive training to master their bodies and minds, aiming to control themselves and, by extension, the universe. Their philosophy, encapsulated by the axiom, "my mind controls my reality," is implemented through a rigorous 10-year program. This develops their ability to control their own physical and mental states, as well as influence others. Their training emphasizes discipline, self-awareness, and the strategic use of power to avoid vulnerability. Despite their profound skills, including the manipulation of their own biochemistry to resist poisons and determine the sex of their offspring, the training also had a built-in safeguard against the overconfidence that could lead to a loss of objectivity. Their unique abilities extend to mastering martial arts known as the Weirding Way, employing a nuanced manipulation technique called the voice for controlling others, and engaging in deep psychological conditioning through sexual imprinting. Additionally, the Bene Gesserit wield a subtle form of cultural influence through the Missionaria Protectiva, embedding themselves within societies to manipulate religious and political outcomes. This multifaceted training and philosophy enable the Bene Gesserit to play a pivotal role in the galactic politics and social dynamics of the Dune universe.
Is that Al-Gaib? The mother and the son?
In a scene that marries domesticity with the arcane, Jessica orchestrates a test for Paul, challenging him to exert his emerging powers of the voice to persuade her to hand over a glass of water. Paul's performance is commendable, albeit not entirely successful, hinting at the untapped potential within.
Give me the water.
Groomed by the Bene Gesserit from birth, Jessica was part of a meticulous breeding plan aimed at producing the Kwisatz Haderach, a being with unprecedented ability to access both male and female ancestral memories and foresee future events. This led to her receiving the most comprehensive Bene Gesserit training and education, but despite the Order's intentions for her to bear a daughter for a strategic union with Feyd-Rautha Harkonnen, Jessica disobeyed. After the lesson in subtle manipulation, Paul acquaints himself with the lore of Arrakis, a planet that monopolizes the universal supply of the mind-altering spice melange. This precious substance, revered for its life-prolonging and perception-enhancing properties, also fuels all travel infrastructure. Produced through a cycle involving sand-trout excretions and water on Arrakis, the effects of melange included mind expansion, prescience in certain individuals like the Bene Gesserit and Guild Navigators, and health benefits like increased longevity. Regular consumption resulted in distinctive blue eyes, known as Eyes of a Bad, and heavy reliance led to profound physical dependencies, particularly evident in Guild Navigators and the Fremen.
Even a little desert mouse can survive.
Duke Leto Atreides, along with his War Master Gurney Halleck and Mentat Thufir Hawat, receive an Imperial envoy led by the Spacing Guild, who formalize the awarding of Arrakis to House Atreides. The Spacing Guild, known among its members as Corpus Luminus Praenuntiatus, the Union of the Foreseeing Eye, held a monopoly on faster-than-light space travel, playing a key role in interstellar shipping and trade during the Carino Empire. They are a pivotal element of the political tripod supporting the Great Convention, established post-Butlerian Jihad, to honor human life and regulate warfare. And the Guild's spice-infused navigators used Holtzman-drive-powered Highlander crafts to navigate folded space safely, thanks to their prescient abilities granted by the spice melange. Primarily comprised of male navigators undergoing a mutation to harness mathematical and prescient skills, their control over space travel was crucial to the Imperium's operation, marking the start of the Imperial calendar with its foundation. As House Atreides ascended the ranks within the Landsraad, becoming a beacon of burgeoning power, the Emperor has been devising a cunning plan to eliminate their rising threat. Perceiving the growing influence of Duke Leto Atreides as a danger, Shaddam has been conspiring with Baron Vladimir Harkonnen to eliminate House Atreides, one of the honorable houses major within the Empire, and bestowing upon them the stewardship of Arrakis effectively serves as both a gift and a gilded trap.
How can the Emperor take everything we've built?
When is a gift not a gift?
Despite his actions against Leto, Shaddam secretly admired him and even wished for his daughter, Princess Irulan, to marry Leto, seeing him as a worthy successor in the absence of a male heir, also a result of Bene Gesserit manipulation. Despite sensing the Emperor's treacherous intention, Duke Leto embraces the challenge of Arrakis as an opportunity to cement his family's legacy and power, aiming to succeed where the Harkonnens faltered for 80 years.
There is no call we do not answer, there is no faith that we betray.
Celebrated as the Red Duke and lauded for his justice, Leto Atreides I served as the 20th Duke of House Atreides and was the father of Paul and Alia with his Bene Gesserit consort, Lady Jessica. Renowned for his equitable and benevolent governance, his reign spanned the fertile world of Caladan before moving to the desert planet Arrakis, all while in a war with his adversary, Baron Harkonnen. In the middle of this political maneuvering, Paul seeks adventure and insight by petitioning Duncan Idaho, the epitome of martial prowess, to escort him to the dunes of Arrakis ahead of their scheduled departure. Having had a dream of his death, he believes that by being there, he might be able to stop Idaho's demise.
I saw you lying dead. Felt like if I had been there, you'd be alive.
Duncan, adhering to duty over premonition, rebuffs Paul's request, dismissing his ominous dreams of the Fremen and the fall in battle with a pragmatic,
Dreams make good stories, but everything important happens when we're awake.
Duncan Idaho, a distinguished Janaz swordmaster, lent his formidable martial prowess to House Atreides after they saved his life from the Harkonnens. He achieved unparalleled mastery in the arts of the Janaz school, swordmasters that basically served as elite commanders, educators, and protectors for the nobility. Esteemed for their unmatched combat skills, surpassing even the fearsome Sardaukar, the Emperor's ruthless army, swordmasters like Idaho and Gurney Halleck were instrumental in honing the Atreides forces into a formidable brotherhood of honorable warriors. The resurgence of melee weaponry, a hallmark of the swordmaster's expertise, came in response to the advent of shielding technologies that rendered conventional firearms obsolete, marking a return to the primacy of the sword and knife in war. Undeterred, Paul turns to his father, Duke Leto, with the same plea he gave Idaho, only to be gently denied. Standing firm in the swirling sands of political machinations, Leto needs Paul as an anchor by his side and is worried about the risk.
A great man doesn't seek to lead. He's called to it.
He details the Emperor's orchestration of a war between House Atreides and House Harkonnen, a conflict designed to bleed both houses dry, tipping the scales of power back to the throne. But eyeing the chessboard with a keen eye, Leto plots to weave the formidable desert power of the Fremen into the might of House Atreides, aiming to outmaneuver the Emperor's gambit. Within these grand designs, Paul wrestles with self-doubt about his capacity to fill his father's considerable boots. In a moment of vulnerability, Leto shares his own youthful uncertainties, offering assurance that Paul will navigate the path to leadership with grace, but if not, he will still love him all the same.
You'll still be the only thing I ever needed you to be, my son.
With danger on the horizon, Gurney Halleck, the loyal Atreides war master, crosses blades with Paul. The sparring session is as much about steel as it is about instilling a sense of vigilance against the Harkonnen menace. The lesson, ruthlessness, is a virtue in the theater of war.
You never met Harkonnens before. I have. They're not human, they're brutal!
Esteemed alongside Thufir Hawat and Duncan Idaho as one of Paul's primary mentors on Caladan, Halleck was known for his uncompromising yet noble spirit, blending the ferocity of a warrior with the soul of a musician. Despite his formidable presence, marked by loyalty and a capacity for deep hostility, Halleck avoided the use of melange. A skilled balisette player, his musical talents and penchant for quoting the Orange Catholic Bible lent a unique depth to his character, often bordering on the prophetic. He was renowned for his unmatched prowess in combat and was capable of besting even the elite Sardaukar. Duncan Idaho once remarked on Halleck's unparalleled ability to intertwine his martial and musical talents, suggesting he could serenade you to death without missing a beat as the epitome of a warrior poet.
What do they say about this hellhole again?
To shower, you scrub your ass with sand, my lord.
They shall suck at the abundance of the seas and the treasure hid in the sand.
Meanwhile, Paul's nights are haunted by visions of Chani, a spectre of destiny weaving through his dreams. The plot thickens with the arrival of Jessica's Bene Gesserit superior, Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mahayam, truthsayer to the Emperor, bringing with her an air of intrigue and foreboding.
She's now truthsayer to the Emperor himself. She wants to know about your dreams.
Prior to this ominous audience, Wellington Yue, the epitome of medical virtue, offers Paul a cryptic warning in Mandarin. The Bene Gesserit's motives are a labyrinth of their own. Suk doctors, emerging from the prestigious Suk school, were renowned for their exceptional medical expertise and rigorous mental conditioning. This rendered them incapable of betraying patients or committing murder. It made them highly sought after by wealthy families and influential organizations, ensuring their loyalty and eliminating the risk of them being exploited as assassins. Much like the Mentats and the Spacing Guild, the inception of the Suk school and its unique educational approach were direct outcomes of the Butlerian Jihad, representing humanity's endeavor to understand and heal its physiological conditions without the reliance on prohibited technologies. And as the doctor of the Atreides family, Wellington is a trusted member of the faction, charged with healing and protecting their bloodline. Upon meeting Paul, Mohiam puts him through the test of the Gom Jabbar, a poisoned needle and a pain-inflicting box to judge his character.
Enough.
Employed by the noble houses and extensively by the Bene Gesserit, the Gom Jabbar served as both a means to eliminate rivals and a test of humanity. When testing an individual, the Bene Gesserit placed it against their neck to deter withdrawal. The test, involving significant pain, measured whether a person's awareness was sufficient to override their primal instincts.
An animal caught in a trap will gnaw off its own leg. What will you do?
Post-examination, with the curiosity of a cat eyeing a mouse, Mohiam probes Paul about his dreams, inquiring if his visions ever breached the veil of reality. In the aftermath, she turns her anger towards Jessica, reprimanding her for daring to deviate from the Bene Gesserit plan. You see, due to her love for Duke Leto, she bore him a son instead of the intended daughter meant to wed a Harkonnen.
So much potential wasted in a male. You were told to bear only daughters.
Accusations fly as Mohiam, later revealed to be her mother, implies Jessica audaciously hoped that her boy could be the Kwisatz Haderach ahead of schedule, an idea as scandalous as it was tantalizing. The Kwisatz Haderach, meaning shortening of the way, represented their goal of creating a male with unparalleled prescient abilities, capable of accessing genetic memories from both genders, unlike their limited female-only perspective provided by Spice Melange. This ambition led to a millennia-long genetic breeding program, aiming to produce a being who could predict the future with precision, combining the roles of a Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother, a Mentat, and a Guild Navigator into one. Intended to end the feud between the Atreides and the Harkonnens, and to place a Bene Gesserit-controlled male on the throne, the plan was effectively altered by Lady Jessica. Jessica confirms the rumors of Paul's messianic potential, only for Mohiam to cast a shadow of doubt, cautioning that Paul's powers are still in their nascent stage, hinting at a risky path ahead. Mohiam's departure leaves a cloud of questions, prompting Paul to seek clarity from Jessica. It's here that his mother reveals the centuries-old Bene Gesserit genetic plan, aimed at birthing a mind capable of traversing the corridors of time, past and future alike.
For thousands of years, we've been carefully crossing bloodlines.
As Atreides make their grand entrance on Arrakis, they are met with an unexpected chorus of chants that are cryptic and incomprehensible to Paul. Jessica explains it is the prophecy of the Lisan al-Gaib, the off-world messiah, a mantle the locals seem ready to drape over Paul, but the boy remains skeptical, attributing the fervor to the Bene Gesserit's penchant for planting myths to serve their ends.
Some believe he's here.
All part of a plan.
Voice from the outer world. That means the Bene Gesserit have been at work here.
The narrative thickens with the introduction of Shadout Mapes, a Fremen who, like many before her, is ensnared by the prophecy. Chosen to be their servant, she presents Jessica with a dagger, a token of allegiance and a symbol of the lethal beauty of Arrakis, forged from the tooth of Shai-Hulud, a sandworm of the desert. The gift is a testament to the deep-rooted belief in Paul and Jessica as the harbingers of change, despite Paul's dismissive attitude towards the prophetic tales woven by the sisterhood.
It's a maker of the deep desert.
Autotrophic creatures on the desert planet of Arrakis, sandworms played a crucial role in the creation of Spice Melange. Originating from an unknown source before the Butlerian Jihad, they thrived under the vast deserts, responding aggressively to rhythmic vibrations on the surface as a territorial defense mechanism. Their existence was shrouded in mystery, with sightings being rare, except by the Fremen, who had developed a unique ability to manage and coexist with the colossal beings. The Atreides' relocation to Arrakis unfolds more like a Herculean trial than a mere change of scenery. They're greeted not by welcoming arms, but by the treachery of sabotaged equipment, a parting gift from the Harkonnens designed to doom them to failure.
We won't see prophets like that for a while, not with the equipment they left us.
The social landscape of Arrakis is also a minefield of murky alliances and veiled hostilities, making friends and foes indistinguishable. Jessica and her compatriots quickly reason that Arrakis is a nexus of intrigue, with the Spacing Guild's palms greased by Fremen bribes to keep the skies clear of surveillance satellites. Among the tapestry of betrayal, Paul encounters his own brush with death, narrowly escaping the silent wear of a hunter-seeker drone, thanks to the timely arrival of Mapes. The incident, set against his contemplation of the Muad'Dib desert mouse, underscores the lethal welcome awaiting them. Confronted with the Harkonnens' parting gifts, Duke Leto seeks to report the injustice through the Imperial Arbiter of the Transition, the ecologist Liet Kynes, a fixture on Arrakis with deep ties to its sands and secrets. Meanwhile, Duncan Idaho re-emerges from the desert with tales of the Fremen, warriors without equal, dwelling in sieges hidden beneath the unforgiving dunes. His reports confirm Thufir Hawat's suspicion of a vastly underestimated Fremen populace, adding yet another layer to the complex political and social puzzle that is Arrakis.
I'd say 10,000 people, and there are hundreds of sieges.
Millions of Fremen.
The belief from Thufir Hawat that there were likely millions of them, and not the thousands that the Harkonnens thought, was culminated through immense calculations. Hawat was essentially a mentat, a human trained to possess computer-like logic and computational ability following the Butlerian Jihad. Mentat training, aimed at developing unparalleled mental faculties and analytical skills, began as early as infancy to enhance sensory and emotional awareness, fostering broad cognitive growth without specialization. This rigorous, disciplined program imposed severe punishments for neglect and promoted self-direction by age 15, culminating in advanced studies in logic, statistics, and conceptual synthesis. Upon reaching a pivotal decision year, candidates sought internal confirmation of their vocation, with successful mentats undergoing further conditioning to refine their supralogical, hypothesizing capabilities. These human processors, able to analyze vast data arrays and create insightful conclusions, were invaluable to political and military leaders. Enhanced by sappho juice, despite its addictive consequences, mentats serve various roles, including advisors and administrators, prized for their ethical operation, unless altered into twisted mentats by the Bene Tleilax for unrestricted computational analysis. This unique blend of ethical constraint and analytical prowess positioned mentats as essential, yet not infallible components within societal and political machinations.
Guild navigators, a total of 1.46 million Solaris round trip.
Duncan Idaho brings word that Stilgar, chieftain of a notable siege, has crossed the dunes to parley with Duke Leto. Stilgar lays down the law of the land. The Outworlders are to keep their exploration within the city's confines, reserving the desert solely for the harvest of spice. Ever the diplomat, Leto rejects the restriction, but vows to uphold the sanctity of Sietch and Fremen under Atreides' rule.
Name what you want.
I ask for this, do not trespass in our lands.
And you will never be hunted while I govern here.
A formidable Fremen leader and Nabe of Sietch Tab, Stilgar embodies the essence of Fremen valor, with the title Nabe denoting a warrior sworn never to be captured alive. Ascension to this role typically demands the defeat of the preceding Nabe in combat, underscoring the position's martial roots. Duncan Idaho describes Stilgar as a paragon of Fremen virtue, so much so that in the books, Idaho himself becomes deeply aligned with both the Atreides and Fremen cause. Stilgar's dedication to safeguarding his people and the traditions of the Fremen, coupled with his profound connection to the merciless landscape of Arrakis, marks him as a sage of the desert, and he commands respect through his wisdom and unwavering commitment to making the inhospitable expanses of Dune a stronghold for his people. Despite Paul's invitation for him to stay, Stilgar takes his leave.
Won't you stay? We would honor you.
Honor requires that I be elsewhere.
In a crash course on survival, Duncan reveals the marvels of Fremen ingenuity, from the life-preserving stillsuits, thumpers, to the paracompass.
The Fremen make these?
And still suits and sand compactors and all kinds of ingenious things.
The stillsuit is an ingenious survival apparatus, meticulously engineered to reclaim the wearer's moisture that's lost through sweat and urine. It purifies it for reconsumption via strategically placed catch pockets and a neck-mounted tube. This remarkable piece of technology enables an individual to endure the harsh desert for weeks, provided the suit is diligently maintained, while the thumper operates as a vital device to attract the colossal sandworms with its rhythmic pounding, triggered by a spring-loaded clapper. Complementing these is the paracompass, a navigational aid attuned to the planet's unique magnetic anomalies, essential for orientation in the tumultuous and magnetically distorted terrain of Arrakis. The plot thickens as Leto's entourage, joined by the enigmatic Liet Kynes, set off to scrutinize the spice mining operations. While in the film Liet is a woman, in the books Kynes was a man that served as imperial planetologist, judge of the change, and the clandestine Fremen leader. As judge, Kynes held the authority to oversee the transition of planetary fiefs and adjudicate in the ancient practice of Canly, with his ruling standing, unless contested before the High Council. The son of Pardek Kynes, an off-worlder revered by the Fremen for his visionary ecological plan to transform Arrakis into a paradise, Niyat inherited a profound respect among the Fremen. Despite his official allegiance to the Imperium, his true loyalty lay with the Fremen, leading to a complex relationship with House Atreides, whom he eventually supported. Noting Paul's adeptness with his stillsuit, a fitting so native it draws her admiration, Kynes murmurs a prophecy that Paul is as Fremen as a desert-born.
No, this is my first time.
Their expedition takes a turn for the dramatic at the sight of a sandcrawler about to be attacked by a sandworm, lured by the mechanical rhythm of spice extraction. This prompts Leto to execute a daring rescue, plunging his ornithopters into the fray. Amidst the chaos, Paul, awash in spice-induced visions and nearly claimed by the behemoth, is saved by Gurney's timely intervention. They can only watch as the Leviathan of the desert claims the sandcrawler in one gulp.
Bless the coming and going of him. May his passage cleanse the world.
In the aftermath, Dr. Yue examines Paul, assuring them that the spice's mind-expanding effects, while potent, pose no harm. The event, teeming with prophecy, danger, and the raw power of Arrakis, foreshadows the tumultuous path Paul is destined to tread, intertwined with the fate of Chani and the soul of Arrakis.
Spice is a psychoactive chemical. You seem to be sensitive.
It was an allergic reaction. I thought I saw my death, only it wasn't. Someone will hand me a blade, but I don't know who or when.
Unfortunately, the Harkonnen onslaught unfolds with a villainy and ferocity that catches House Atreides off guard, striking with a swiftness and might that leaves them reeling. The Harkonnens, in a maneuver of Machiavellian cunning, infiltrate their inner sanctum with a mole. Achieving the unthinkable, they shatter the imperial conditioning of a Suk Doctor, a feat thought impossible. By dangling the potential of his wife's freedom from torment, they bend the Atreides medic Yue to aid in their dark plan. As the Harkonnen forces descent, he sabotages their defenses and drugs Paul and Jessica. As a result, the Atreides find themselves rudderless, caught in the storm of Harkonnen and Sardaukar violence.
Sardaukar!
Jolted awake by lights in the distance, Leto calls for his security, only to find silence. His discovery of the lifeless Mapes is swiftly followed by his own incapacitation via a treacherous dart, courtesy of Yue, who steps out of the shadows as the architect of betrayal. The Doctor confesses his treason, driven by the Harkonnens' leverage over his wife.
I had no choice. They take her apart like a doll.
But in a final act of defiance, he arms Leto with a poison capsule hidden inside his tooth, a desperate gambit against the Baron. Baron Vladimir Harkonnen was earmarked early for leadership over his gentler half-brother Abulard, under the tutelage of his father, the reigning Siradar and Baron of Gaida Prime. His rise to power was characterized by enhancing House Harkonnen's influence through methods of blackmail, subterfuge, and outright treachery. His reign was marked by cruelty and exploitation, particularly towards those enslaved under his rule. A formidable adversary of House Atreides, the Baron's vendetta against Leto was both personal and ruthless, aiming for nothing less than their total annihilation. His nephews, Glossu the Beast Rabban and Fade Rautha, were key players in his scheme for galactic supremacy. Rabban acted as the Iron Fist on Arrakis, while Fade was being primed to inherit and expand the Baron's dark legacy.
My desert, my Arrakis, my Dune.
Gurney springs into action, rallying the Atreides forces against the Harkonnen invaders and the Imperial Sardaukar, but their ships and equipment are destroyed before the battle even begins.
God in heaven.
Get everything with guns off the ground! Go!
Stranded on the harsh planet Seleucia Secundus, colonists adapted to extreme climates and dangerous wildlife developed into the formidable warrior society called the Sardaukar. This rugged, fearless population, organized into clans, eventually united under House Guerrilla after their victory at the Battle of Corran. Seleucia Secundus, deemed too harsh for governance, became an imperial prison planet, contributing to the Sardaukar's reputation as the ultimate enforcers of the Emperor's will, maintaining order across the universe through fear and unmatched combat skills. The Sardaukar training, marked by ruthlessness and a disregard for personal safety, made them dangerous warriors. Their loyalty to House Guerrilla was indoctrinated through a belief in their superiority and a relatively decent lifestyle. This set them apart as the Imperium's most formidable military force, rivaled only by warriors of equally brutal environments like the Fremen of Arrakis. The Atreides forces, blindsided and vastly outnumbered by the combined might of Harkonnen and Sardaukar troops, find themselves in a dire predicament. Their ranks are ultimately decimated and their defenses shattered, leaving only a handful of survivors to flee into the unforgiving desert. Duncan Idaho emerges as a beacon of valor, dispatching many Sardaukar before commandeering an ornithopter, hoping to whisk Paul and Jessica to safety, only to discover them gone.
Let's beat the kid to the world. I give her a long goodbye.
Meanwhile, the Baron Vladimir, ever the schemer, has assured Mohaim and the Bene Gesserit of Paul and Jessica's safety. He does this by weaving a web of deceit to ensure that he can claim, with a straight face, that he did not kill them.
But Arrakis is Arrakis, and the desert takes the weak.
His plan involves casting them into the desert to perish under the cruel sun. But Paul, his mastery of the Bene Gesserit voice yet unrefined, nonetheless bends it to his will, compelling their captors to free Jessica. With her gag removed, Jessica's command is swift and lethal, orchestrating the demise of their abductors with chilling efficiency.
Give me the knife!
With their ornithopter incapacitated, they're forced to witness the destruction of their home and people from afar, and under the intoxicating influence of the omnipresent spice, Paul's latent abilities burgeon into full force.
Holy war spreading across the universe like unquenchable fire.
His perception of potential futures develops, revealing glimpses of paths leading to the resurgence of House Atreides. The key to this destiny lies in forging an alliance with the indomitable Fremen, provided he can survive. In a confrontation loaded with betrayal, Yue demands his payment from Baron Harkonnen, seeking the fulfillment of their pact. The Baron, as the embodiment of treachery, feigns compliance and simply ends his life.
I deliver the Duke and his family. Deliver my wife from her agony.
I said I'd set her free, that you could join her. So join her.
But his triumph is short-lived, as Leto unleashes the deadly toxin. This claims the lives of all but the Baron, who is severely injured but narrowly escapes death by retreating to the ceiling.
Tonight the House of Atreides falls.
As Paul shelters from a tempest in a survival tent with Jessica, the spice continues to unlock the floodgates of his psyche. Initially, he's visited by visions of Chani, a prelude to darker, more tumultuous insights. His view is soon clouded by the spectre of war and fervent crusades waged in the name of Atreides, a future where peace is consumed by an insatiable inferno of conflict and zealotry. What he's effectively seeing is a vision of the Muad'Dib's jihad, a potential timeline. Here, Paul's ascension to Emperor would initiate a 12-year jihad, radically transforming the universe with the Fremen conquering thousands of planets in his name. This would lead to over 10,000 worlds under Atreides' control, 61 billion casualties, the sterilization of 90 planets, the demoralization of 500 worlds, and the extinction of 40 religions. Recoiling in horror at the cataclysmic future his vision revealed, Paul initially cast blame towards Jessica and the Bene Gesserit. Yet amidst a storm of prophecy and panic, Jessica is able to bring him a semblance of peace.
You know who you are.
Get off me!
In the aftermath of betrayal and carnage, Duncan Idaho emerges, rescuing Paul and Jessica away from the jaws of death. Their sanctuary, an abandoned terraforming outpost now harboring Fremen under the stewardship of Kynes.
You know what the great houses fear most, Dr. Kynes. Exactly what has happened to us here.
As emperors, I can make a paradise of Arrakis with a wave of my hand.
However, tranquility is short-lived as Sardaukar besiege their haven, igniting a fierce skirmish that sees the Fremen inflicting heavy casualties. Just as Paul had foreseen, here Duncan lays down his life to enable Paul, Jessica, and Niyat to escape.
No! Duncan!
Oh, no!
Duncan, no!
In a daring move, Paul and Jessica take to the skies in an ornithopter, while the gravely injured Niyat summons a sandworm and is enveloped by the desert behemoth. As Paul navigates the ornithopter through a sandstorm, he's visited by another prescient vision, a Fremen guiding him through the art of survival by acquiescing to the movement of the desert.
The mystery of life isn't a problem to solve. We must move with the flow of the process.
Heeding this advice, Paul surrenders to the storm, emerging battered but alive in the heart of the desert. Presumed dead by the Harkonnen and now under the relentless sun, Jessica and Paul trek towards the rumored sanctuary of a Fremen siege on foot. Their journey, marked by the ominous presence of a sandworm, leads them to a precarious standoff with a band of Fremen.
This is the Duke's son.
Why are you waiting? We need their water.
Among them is their leader Stilgar, who deems Paul untouchable, a sentiment not shared by Jamis, who begins to eye them with lethal intent. Recognizing Jamis from his visions, Paul stands at the precipice of destiny, his path inexorably intertwined with the sands and secrets of Arrakis.
They're weaklings. Go back to reason, Stilgar. He's not the one.
Known for his ferocity in battle, Jamis was a valuable yet flawed Fremen warrior, praised by Stilgar for his bravery but criticized for excessive violence, limiting his leadership potential. His aggressive nature, however, secured him a respected place in the tribe. In a bid for sanctuary and a return to Caladan, Jessica plays her hand, promising extravagant rewards. Unimpressed by the material offerings of Outworlders, Stilgar proposes a split fate for mother and son. With the fire of youth still within him, Paul will be welcomed to the siege, while Jessica, deemed too old for the rigors of Fremen warfare, faces abandonment.
We can learn our ways, but the woman isn't trained.
But underestimating the duo's Bene Gesserit prowess proves to be Stilgar's folly, as they quickly disarm the Fremen, securing their position with a blade at his throat. Recognizing Jessica's affiliation with the Bene Gesserit, Stilgar recalibrates his stance, agreeing to shepherd both of them to the safety of the siege.
Why didn't you say you were a weirding woman?
Conversation ran short.
However, this accord is fractured by Jamis, who demands combat with Jessica. As a result, Paul steps forward as his mother's champion, sealing his fate in a duel that echoes through his visions.
Atreides must die.
Here, Chani extends a crysknife to Paul, a gesture of compassion for the young Atreides, whom she believes is about to die, a poignant intersection of prophecy and reality.
I will not have them. You talk like a leader, but the strongest leads.
In a duel that pits youth against experience, Paul astonishingly dominates Jamis, showcasing not just an knack for combat, but a mastery, courtesy of his elite training. Despite his advantage, the revelation that Fremen duels are a fight to the bitter end throws him, for Paul is yet to stain his hands with the blood of another. The spectacle of a mere boy besting a seasoned warrior might seem a mismatch of epic proportions, yet Paul, driven by necessity over desire, secures victory, and with it, a newfound status within the tribe. This victory plunges Paul and Jessica deeper into the Fremen way of life, a culture where even in death, utility reigns supreme, evident when Jamis is distilled to his essence, his water reclaimed by the tribe as a stark testament to the value of life's most fundamental resource.
You're one of us now. A life for a life. Come with us to Sitztabr.
Witnessing a Fremen defying the impossible to ride a behemoth worm, Paul and Jessica are ushered into the heart of the desert by Chani, who hints at the dawn of a profound journey. She whispers to Paul, this is only the beginning, a prelude to the odyssey that lies ahead in the shifting sands of Arrakis.
Desert power.
This is only the beginning.
You have much to learn. I will show you the ways of the desert. Come with me.
Daughter of the half-Fremen planetologist Liet Kynes, Chani emerged as a formidable fighter within Stilgar's ranks on Arrakis. Preceded by her presence and Paul's prescient visions, their burgeoning romance would significantly shape the universe's destiny. No, seriously, it gets pretty wild. And for more information for those that want spoilers, check out my video on the God Emperor of Dune after this video.
Muad'Dib, the one who points the way. These are our own religious patterns, aren't they? This is our doing. What if Paul Atreides were still alive?
Enough.
As we pick up with part 2, we find Princess Irulan Carino, daughter of Emperor Shaddam IV, chronicling the secret attack against House Atreides by the Harkonnens. Born to the 81st Padishah Emperor and Bene Gesserit Anurul, Irulan emerged as a pivotal historian. Raised in the grandeur of the imperial court with her sisters, her education was steeped in Bene Gesserit teachings, preparing her for a life of political maneuvering and elegance. With the grand designs of others who eyed her as a tool for exploitation, Irulan's journey found her individuality and ambition clashing with familial and societal expectations. The actions of her father intertwine her fate with Arrakis and the universe at large, setting the stage for her role in the tumultuous events that follow. She notes that with the stealth of shadows, the Harkonnen forces executed their assault on Arrakis, catching all off guard under the veil of night without a declaration of war. Despite Duke Leto holding a place in her father's heart akin to a son, Irulan is left pondering the motivations behind her father's order to obliterate the Atreides lineage. Yet she harbored a suspicion that their story was not over, as her reflection then drifted to the broader implications of House Atreides' downfall for Arrakis itself. Here we shift back to the Fremen, Paul Atreides and his expectant mother Lady Jessica, as they embark on a perilous journey across the desert to the refuge of Sietch Tabr. Shielded from the scorching rays of the Arrakis sun canopus and nestled within the sanctuary of mountains or rock formations, Sietches functioned as a fortress and home for the Fremen. These vast complexes, carved by nature or Fremen hands, sprawled into extensive networks of tunnels and caves, accommodating not just families, but the entirety of a self-sufficient society. Each Sietch, functioning as a small city, supported its own economy with spice processing, stillsuit manufacturing, agriculture, and essential water conservation systems. Governed by a nabe and vigilantly protected, the Sietches balanced communal living with private family spaces known as yellas. Inheritance of these quarters followed Fremen customs, passing to the son, or in the case of a Tahadi challenge, to the victor. Notably, some Sietches, like Sietch Tabr, were distinguished by harboring a stunted sandworm essential for the sacred water of life rituals, underscoring the deep intertwining of Fremen life with the ecology of Arrakis. In an intimate moment, Paul Atreides finds solace in the sand, confiding in the not-yet-arrived spirit of his sister. He discusses their father's demise, the world's inherent cruelty, and his daunting fear of running out of time to mend the fractures of their reality before she joins them. The reflective speech is abruptly curtailed as reality intrudes, with Paul and Jessica compelled into hiding from the ever-vigilant Harkonnen scouts. Under Stilgar's seasoned leadership, the Fremen execute a strategic withdrawal, cleverly employing a thumper to summon a sandworm, effectively diverting the Harkonnen threat to less favorable terrain. In the ensuing skirmish, Paul and Jessica, blending with the Fremen, leverage surprise to their advantage, neutralizing their pursuers in a desperate bid for survival. The aftermath sees the Fremen extracting water from their fallen foes, an act of survival and reverence, leaving the carcasses as offerings to the desert deity Shai-Hulud. Meanwhile, the Harkonnen stronghold in Arrakeen bubbles with Glossu Raban's fury over the mounting losses inflicted by the Fremen, his ambitions halted by the desert's unconquered south. Upon reaching the safety of the Sietch, Paul and Jessica confront a maelstrom of suspicion, grief, and messianic expectations from the Fremen, their presence stirring a cauldron of conflicting sentiments. Here, Stilgar stands as their advocate before the council, arguing for mutual aid and alliance. While they suggest he cast Paul and Jessica into the wilderness, Stilgar, swayed by omens, proclaims Paul as their prophesied Mahdi, personally endorsing him. In a confidential exchange, he also unveils to Jessica the Sietch's hidden lifeline, a vast aquifer nurtured by the essence of their deceased. He also shares the dire news of their Reverend Mother's waning life, positing Jessica as her successor, a position she cannot refuse without facing death herself. And so, in the sacred company of the Sayadina and the ailing Reverend Mother Ramillo, Jessica is called to partake in the perilous ritual of the Water of Life, a decisive moment that intertwines fate with tradition and survival with legacy. The Sayadina, translating to Friend of God and Jacobsa, denotes the Fremen's lower-tier priestesses who have yet to undergo the transformative spice agony to become Reverend Mothers. Typically, a new Sayadina is appointed concurrently with the previous holder's attempt at the spice agony, ensuring the preservation of spiritual leadership should the trial prove fatal, while the Water of Life, a potent blue poison, serves as a pivotal rite of passage for the Bene Gesserit, transforming acolytes into Reverend Mothers, a tradition shared by the Sayadina of the Fremen. Deadly to those unversed in the advanced Prana Bindu techniques, this lethal concoction guarantees death with excruciating pain for the unprepared. Sourced from the planet Dune, it is derived from the bile of a young sandworm, emerging only as the creature faces death by drowning. For those who survive its consumption, the Water of Life acts as an awareness spectrum, integral to the Bene Gesserit and their spiritual and psychic ascendancy. Here, Paul is told by Chani and the others that there are two factions within the Fremen, those from the north like them that believe in only the Fremen, and southerners like Stilgar, who believe in the prophecy of the Lisan al-Gaib. At the same time, Jessica is forced to drink the Water of Life, told that if she drinks she will die, and if she drinks she may see. But as she begins to convulse, the other Sayadinas start to grow fearful after realizing too late that Jessica is pregnant. During the ordeal, both camps of the Fremen argue about what happened as she recovered in deep sleep. You see, Stilgar and the Southerners believed Jessica survived just as it was written for the mother of the Lisan al-Gaib to do so, while Chani and the others contest that the prophecy was written by the Bene Gesserit. Cutting through the argument, Paul admits it was no miracle, as his mother was trained to transmutate poison. Insisting he wasn't the Mahdi and didn't want to lead, he instead asks only to fight beside them. Hilariously, the Southerners, including Stilgar, say that Paul is too humble to say that he was the Mahdi, which in their eyes was even more reason to know that he was, showing how spirituality blinded those that believed. After a little while, Jessica overcomes the poison and inherits the memories of the Sayyidina ancestors and Bene Gesserit that came before her. This has unprecedented effects on her daughter Alia Atreides, who was now preborn and highly susceptible to abomination from before birth. The term preborn describes individuals who, even before their birth, possess a fully formed consciousness and the ability to access their ancestral memories, mirroring the abilities of a Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother. This precocious awakening makes them particularly prone to abomination, a condition where the individual is at risk of being dominated by the personalities within their genetic memory, potentially leading to insanity. The Bene Gesserit actually regard those labeled as abominations with deep fear due to their uncontrollable access to collective ancestral knowledge and resultant psychological instability, posing a significant danger. As such, they enforce a draconian measure against those suspected of being abominations, mandating their immediate execution to prevent any threat they might pose. With Jessica gaining new information and prescient abilities, her daughter does so as well. Too young to have developed her own personality, and overwhelmed by the ego memories of their ancestors, this has catastrophic effects on Alia. Jessica also admits that she's been communicating with her preborn daughter. His mother then explains that only one step remained for him to become the Kwisatz Haderach. He need only do what she did and drink the water of life, enabling his mind to open and see the beauty and the horror. Following this, Paul begins his trials to join the Fremen, and is told to cross the desert and return alive from his journey. While she's talking with her friend Shishakli about how the prophecy must be false, Chani tells her that there's sincerity in Paul, unlike the other outsiders they've encountered. This leads her to eventually join him and teach Paul their ways. From instructing him on how to properly sandwalk to explaining how wind traps work, devices designed to reclaim the moisture in the air and funnel it into large catch basins, Chani imparts a fountain of knowledge. As we cut to Jessica, we see her preborn daughter Alia telling her to convert the non-believers in northern Arrakis into accepting the prophecy, beginning with who they perceive to be weak. With some time having passed, hiding in the sand, the Fremen and Paul lay siege to a Harkonnen spice mining tank. The warriors efficiently kill the soldiers protecting it, but all hell breaks loose when an ornithopter flies around and begins to fire on them, taking out a number of Fremen. Realizing its shield only went down when it opened fire, after protecting Chani, Paul distracts it, enabling her to bring it down using a rocket launcher. Asked how he learned to fight so well, Paul explains to the Fremen that his war masters, who died along with his father, taught him. Declaring that while the Fremen had been warring with the Harkonnens for decades, he notes that his family had been fighting them for centuries. Reasoning that with the Fremen knowledge of the desert and his insights into the Harkonnens, he suggests that they could bury them in the desert and give Arrakis back to their people. This ends up rousing those that were initially skeptical of him into saying he needed to be Fedaykin, essentially Fremen's guerrilla fighters and the elite of their forces. And with that, Stilgar gives Paul the name Usul, meaning the strong base of a pillar, as his private name within the troop, while Paul gives himself the name Muad'Dib as his public Fremen name after the clever Arrakis mouse. This leads to Paul Muad'Dib Usul becoming accepted by the entire tribe, as he and Chani begin to develop a romantic relationship.
Here, we're equal, men and women alike. What we do for the benefit of all.
I'd very much like to be equal to you.
As they do so, Chani reveals her private name in the troop as being Sahaya, meaning Desert Spring. While she effectively hates the name and its association to an ancient prophecy, it should be noted that it ends up being significant later. Under his leadership, his Fedaykin experience victory after victory against the Harkonnens, and Paul's prestige and aura among the Fremen grows. This not only angers the Baron, but leads to him threatening Rabban with death if their ability to produce spice is further endangered by these events. Paul also finds himself experiencing horrific visions of him following a mysterious figure, later shown to be Jessica, heading south. In it, the land is scattered with corpses, due to the holy war he felt would happen if he were to become the Lisan al-Gaib.
Don't try to impress anyone. You're brave, we all know that.
Nothing fancy.
Hey, I'm serious. Nothing fancy or you will shame my teaching.
I won't shame you.
To gain full acceptance among the Fremen, one must master the perilous skill of sand riding, controlling the colossal sandworms indigenous to Arrakis using maker hooks. This closely guarded secret allows them unparalleled mobility across the desert terrains, surpassing the capabilities of any occupying force hindered by the planet's violent Coriolis storms.
Shai Hulud decides today if you become Fremen, or if you die.
Despite the inherent dangers of commandeering such a behemoth, Paul embraces the challenge by successfully riding a grandfather sandworm, the largest they'd ever seen. This cements his place within the Fremen community as a fully integrated member of the Siege. Upon hearing this, Jessica proclaims that Shai Hulud will bow to the boy from the outer world, sending her followers to spread word of the prophecy and how it was coming to fruition. With many in the north now starting to believe in Paul, Jessica then heads off to southern Arrakis to spread word of the prophecy to the millions of fundamentalists. While she wants Paul to join her, he feels that they're giving the people false hope and that him joining her would lead to his visions coming true. The journey there on Sandworm is a dangerous one, with her group forced to pass through a Coriolis storm. A Coriolis storm on Arrakis is a devastating sandstorm, its ferocity magnified by the planet's rotation, propelling winds to terrifying speeds of up to 700 kilometers per hour. The storms pose a significant threat to life and infrastructure on the desert planet, but the native Fremen mitigate this danger by constructing their sieges within rock formations. This is in contrast to the capital Arrakis, which is protected by the large shield wall. In the film, the storm also served as a boundary between the northern and southern territories of Arrakis, effectively impeding the southward expansion of the Harkonnens. Unfortunately for the Harkonnens, more of their spice depots and equipment continue to be destroyed by the Fremen. This causes the furious Raban to lead a massive hunt for the Fremen, one that sees most of his forces killed, his near death and ultimately Raban retreating with his tail behind his legs. As the Emperor learns of the Muad'Dib, a Fremen prophet causing trouble for his continued reign, he questions his daughter on how to approach the crisis.
Send assassins.
No, prophets get stronger when they die. Let the conflict turn into war. You then bring peace.
While he wants to use direct force with his Sardaukar, the princess explains that repression will only make their religion flourish. Instead, in the presence of her teacher, Reverend Mother Mohiam, Irulan suggests he lets the conflict break out into war. This would effectively enable him to sweep in and bring peace, making him the hero in the eyes of the Landsraad and the other great houses. But as she walked away with the Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohiam, Irulan deduces that Muad'Dib might actually be Paul Atreides, something the Reverend Mother tells her not to repeat in front of anyone.
Enough! This must not come out. Even to your father's ears, understand?
I do, Reverend Mother.
The concern, of course, is that Paul likely knows the Emperor liquidated his entire house, an illegal act that would likely see the other houses come together to overthrow him. Anticipating this, Gaius Mohiam reveals the Bene Gesserit have another card up their sleeve in the form of Feyd-Rautha, the Baron's psychotic youngest nephew. Meanwhile, Baron Vladimir Harkonnen has returned to his home world to celebrate the birthday of Feyd-Rautha, brother of Raban. Born to Abilaud Raban, Feyd-Rautha represented his father's aspirations to cleanse the family name of its Harkonnen dishonor and become a dignified heir, contrasting with his brutish older brother Glossu. Named after his maternal grandfather, Feyd-Rautha's fate took a pivotal turn when Baron Vladimir Harkonnen chose to mentor him, envisioning the boy as the ideal successor to the Harkonnen legacy. In fact, acknowledging his potential, the Baron officially named Feyd-Rautha as his heir, favoring him over Glossu and thus integrating him fully into the Harkonnen lineage as Feyd-Rautha Harkonnen instead of Raban.
You humiliated our family. You humiliated me.
I thought that it was interesting to note that Paul Atreides and Feyd-Rautha, though similar in their noble origins, education, and martial prowess, embody starkly contrasting natures. Paul's kindness, loyalty, and empathy stand in sharp relief against Feyd's ruthless cruelty, brutality, and ambition. In this way, Feyd-Rautha represents the antithesis of Paul, serving as his shadowy counterpart and illustrating the duality inherent in the Bene Gesserit's breeding program, where both are forged from the same design, yet diverge onto diametrically opposed paths. It's also important to consider that in a strategic maneuver to enlist House Harkonnen's cooperation in his plot, the Emperor dangled the prospect of marrying Irulan to the Harkonnen heir. Enticed by the vision of a Harkonnen empire bolstered by this alliance, the Baron welcomed the proposal, and caught in the crossfire of political machinations, Irulan found herself a reluctant pawn, inwardly rebelling against her role in the power play designed to consolidate Harkonnen dominance. The celebration essentially involves Feyd-Rautha engaging in his favorite pastime, killing people, this time inside an arena where thousands have come to watch him defeat the last 3 remaining Atreides. While it's customary for them to be drugged, we learn that his uncle had left one untouched, wanting to see his nephew being put to the test.
Show me who you are.
Also in attendance are Reverend Mother Mohiam and fellow Bene Gesserit Lady Margot of House Fenring, who have plans of their own. More on House Fenring at the end of the video. Although the 2 intoxicated soldiers are easily beaten, the last one proves to be a match for the young Feyd-Rautha, something he admires. So much so that he removes his shield and is angered when the court jesters try to interfere by injuring him.
Feyd-Rautha, he's psychotic.
When he eventually defeats him, he even tells the man that he fought well, before walking out of the arena and yelling at his uncle for trying to kill him. The Baron explains that news of the Emperor's hand in the destruction of House Atreides would cause the great houses to rise up against him, and this could enable Feyd-Rautha to sit on the throne. The Bene Gesserit have also sent Lady Margot Fenring to use the voice against Feyd-Rautha and put him through the test of the Gom Jabbar. After he passes, she manipulates him into sleeping with her, giving them control over the Harkonnen bloodline, with her now carrying his daughter.
You young pup.
Look who's back from the dead.
At the same time, finding Gurney Halleck operating as a smuggler, along with some Fremen he befriended, Paul brings him into the fold. But his Fedaykin are not quick to trust him, believing Gurney to be a spy. In the novel, we actually discover there were a few Harkonnen spies embedded within Halleck's group that even make an attempt on Paul's life, but the movie omits this. Also gone is Gurney's attempt on Jessica's life, as he believed she was the spy that betrayed House Atreides. In the book, we learn the Atreides knew there was a mole among their ranks, with Halleck and Thufir Hawat believing it to be Jessica. But this was curtailed by Paul, who reveals it was Yue all along, convincing Gurney to swear allegiance to both Paul and Jessica.
The Prophet. Why is that a bad thing? Use it.
Because all my visions lead to horror.
Because you lose control.
Because I gain it.
While Gurney tries to encourage Paul to use the Fremen to lead an ultimate attack on the Harkonnens, Paul admits he was reluctant due to his horrific visions of what happens if he gains control. However, revealing he knew where his father hid the family's supply of 92 atomic warheads, Halleck spurs Paul and his Fedaykin to plan an epic retaliation. Powered by nuclear fission, atomics were mired in deep psychological and societal disdain, largely due to their catastrophic historical application. Governed by the Great Convention, the deployment of atomics as offensive weapons warranted planetary obliteration. Yet, paradoxically, the Great Houses secretly amassed them against potential extraterrestrial threats. This collective repugnance stems from their apocalyptic use in the war against thinking machines, most notably resulting in the desolation of Earth and Corrin. But it should be noted that despite their prohibition, atomics punctuated intergalactic history with significant incidents. As mentioned just before, this included Earth's obliteration before the Butlerian Jihad, the annihilation of thinking machines and biological life across several planets during the Great Purge, and the ecological ruin of Seleucus Secundus by House Tantor, which required the imperial capital's relocation to Kitane. Additionally, the obliteration of Corona during Shaddam IV's Great Spice War underscored the perilous legacy and continued fear of atomics in the universe. This is why their discovery begins to sow a rift between Chani and Paul, which continues to grow the closer he gets to ultimate power. With Jessica getting a demonstration from the caretaker on how the Water of Life was created, she commands her to wait for her son Paul, who will be coming to fulfill the prophecy. Meanwhile, unhappy with the performance of Raban, the Baron promotes Feyd-Rautha to governor of Arrakis, and the planet begins to witness his cunning. Laying siege to the planet with heavy bombing raids, the young governor manages to bury Siege Tabar and kill a number of Fremen, while forcing the rest to hide. telling Reban that he humiliated their family by failing to take control. Feyd-Rautha even embarrasses him in turn by getting him to kiss his feet in a sign of fealty.
Kiss or die. Or even not.
With the Harkonnens hitting all of the northern Sietches, a war council is called by the Fremen in the south, where they are waiting for the Muad'Dib. Calling for Jamis to guide him as he did before, Paul receives visions telling him to drink the water of life to see everything, and Jamis explaining a good hunter needs to see in order to succeed. Because of this, despite Paul's reluctance, the survivors all make their way toward the south riding sandworms. While most of them head to the gathering, Paul makes a detour and drinks the water of life. Overwhelmed by visions of the future, including one of his sister Alia standing by a beach on Arrakis and telling him that she's with him, he slips into unconsciousness. At the same time, staying behind to spy on the Harkonnens, Shishakli is captured and eventually incinerated by Feyd-Rautha when she refuses to talk. With Jessica, the Fedaykin, and other Fremen unable to wake Paul, Chani is called to help. While she initially believed him to be dead, Jessica explains his vital signs were merely low and that he needed her help. Although she didn't believe in the prophecy, she's told that she's a part of it. With Stilgar uttering, "He shall come back from the dead with deserts bring tears," a translation of Chani's name Sahaya, she calls for them to bring her a drop of the water of life. After blending her tears with a mysterious substance and placing it on his lips, she wakes Paul up, confirming the prophecy of the Lisan al-Gaib. With Chani slapping him and walking off in protest, Paul explains to Jessica that his visions were clear now. He can essentially see possible futures all at once and a way for them to prevail, with their bloodline written across time. He also reveals that he knew Jessica as the daughter of Baron Harkonnen, something she herself only found out after drinking the water of life. Although it was effectively necessary in the Fremen tradition for Paul to kill Stilgar and take his place in order to speak at a gathering, something Stilgar desperately wanted, Paul refuses, stating it is he that points the way. And while Chani kicks up a fuss, saying that the prophecy would enslave her people, she's told to be quiet by all, including Gurney Halleck, confronting the millions of Fremen listening by saying that their rules did not apply to him as the Lisan al-Gaib. Paul ultimately declares that there are none among the Fremen that could stand against him. While many stand up with their crysknives daring to fight him, he continues by saying their mothers had warned them about his coming and that they should fear the moment. Revealing intimate details about all those that dared to stand in his way, he sways the entire crowd with his passion and fervor, so much so that even the Northerners begin to bow down to him, declaring that he was Paul Muad'Dib Atreides, Duke of Arrakis, the voice from the outer world. He finally proclaims that he was here to lead them to paradise. With the crowd of fundamentalists chanting his name, we cut to the Emperor, who receives a formal challenge from Paul. Arriving on the planet soon after with his entire Sardaukar force, the Emperor admonishes the Baron for failing to deal with House Atreides as was promised. At the same time, Paul and his Fremen stage a multi-layered attack, under the cover of a massive storm that the Lisan al-Gaib had foreseen would help them. Stilgar and his troops attack from the west, with the help from an atomic that Halleck detonates to break the shield wall. Chani and the Fedaykin strike from the east, while Paul hits them head-on from the north with his fundamentalists. It's here that the desert power of the Fremen that Duke Leto had talked of is finally utilized. Using the sandstorm, sandworms, and the element of surprise, the Fremen cut a swath through the Sardaukar and Harkonnen troops, defeating them with ease. And as the Baron makes a desperate attempt to crawl to the Emperor's throne, Paul arrives and kills him, revealing that he knew he was his grandson. After ordering his Fremen to kill the Sardaukar guarding the Emperor and bring the prisoners to the Residency, Paul also tells them to throw the Baron's body in the desert, a humiliation to match the one shown to his father. As the Sardaukar and remaining Harkonnen troops outside flee in panic, their spirit broken by the Fremen, Halleck catches up to Reban and fights him, culminating with his blade in Reban's chest. With the battle over, Paul confronts the Emperor for his role in the death of Duke Leto and the near destruction of House Atreides. With news that the great houses have begun to arrive in orbit, Paul tells Chani that he will love her no matter the outcome of what happens. With the houses about to attack, he orders Gurney to send the great houses a message that if they land, he will use the remaining atomics to destroy all the spice melange. The Emperor tries to order Paul to bow at his feet as a servant of the Imperium, but the Muad'Dib explains that he will only allow Shaddam to keep his head in exchange for Urlan's hand in marriage. Challenged to Canley, Feyd-Rautha agrees to be the Emperor's champion, putting him and Paul in a battle for control over the universe. The confrontation is fierce, showcasing their mutual skill and ferocity, and although Feyd-Rautha manages to stab Paul, Muad'Dib ultimately strikes the lethal blow. With the rules of Canley binding the Emperor to comply, he's forced to kiss the hand of Paul Muad'Dib Atreides, Duke of Arrakis, the voice from the outer world, as the new Emperor of the Imperium. Unfortunately, Paul is informed that the Great Houses will not accept his ascension to Emperor, leading him to order the Fremen to load their armies onto ships to begin their holy war and head to the promised paradise. Notably, as Paul takes the hand of Uralan in marriage, Chani storms out, and the film concludes with her riding a sandworm into the desert.
I will love you as long as I breathe.
This prophecy is how they enslave us!
It's not a prophecy, it's a story.
Are you prepared?
You've been preparing me my whole life.
Denis Villeneuve's Dune delivers more than just blockbuster thrills. Its conclusion offers a poignant exploration of the central theme the director aims to spotlight, the perilous nature of power. The narrative delves not just into the implications of Paul's burgeoning power for himself, but also scrutinizes its consequences for the galaxy, magnified by zealous followers. The conclusion, paradoxically showcasing Paul liberating the Fremen while inadvertently imposing tyranny on others, serves as a bitter lesson on the dangers of charismatic leaders and the dual-edged nature of power. Now, I think it's important to note that many of the events that take place in the film are quite different to the novel. And to give you some context, I'm going to discuss these in the final section.
My allegiance is to you. Do you believe me?
You will never lose me as long as you stay who you are.
While there are a series of discernible deviations from the original text, Denis Villeneuve's Dune is a fairly faithful adaptation of Frank Herbert's seminal work. Books and films are two completely different art forms, and it's understandable that some changes need to be made to fit the visual medium and runtime. After all, the first novel, especially in audiobook form, is about 21 hours, and despite the two-part film running to almost 6 hours, not everything could be fit in. Villeneuve introduced many modifications, ranging from the absence of specific characters and adjustments in character trajectories to other narrative divergences from the source material. Among these, the adaptation's temporal structure stands out, with Villeneuve's decision to eliminate the novel's 2-year time leap in favor of a shorter timeline following the end of the first film. This condenses the progression and alters the pace at which Paul's integration with the Fremen and his rise to power unfold. The repercussions of Paul's fight with Jamis, a pivotal moment from the end of the first film, also diverges from the novel. In Frank Herbert's epic, Paul assumes responsibility for Jamis's widow Hera and their children, integrating an essential aspect of Fremen tradition into the storyline and catalyzing a crucial bond. This, however, is absent from the sequel, with Hera's character not featured. Equally notable is the absence of Count Fenring, a significant figure within House Guerrilla, known for his roles as an assassin, mentat, and confidant to Emperor Shaddam. While Dune 2 features his Bene Gesserit wife, Lady Margot Fenring, Count Fenring himself is missing. This was despite his considerable involvement in the novel, including an imperial command to assassinate Paul, and a substantial deviation from the source material. Perhaps the most glaring omission for me was Thufir Hawat, the Atreides mentat, whose fate was left ambiguous in the first film. The sequel overlooks a continuation of his arc from the book. In it, he survived the Harkonnen onslaught, is bent by Baron Harkonnen, and becomes embroiled in a plot against Paul, ultimately leading to his tragic demise upon refusing to harm him.
Oh, Thufir! I see they've installed your hard plug already. Don't be angry, everyone gets one here.
All I can see is an Atreides that I want to kill.
Hey, Thufir's a Harkonnen now, aren't you, Thufir?
This subplot's exclusion from Dune 2 marks a significant departure from the book, leaving another storyline rich with intrigue and loyalty untouched.
In payment of the many years of service to my family, you may now ask of me anything you wish, anything at all. Do you need my life, old friend? It is yours.
3 generations of you.
Carry this noble Atreides warrior away.
Dune 2 makes another significant alteration by reimagining the character of Alia Atreides. Because the 2 to 3 year timeline of Paul learning the ways of the Fremen was shortened to a few months, instead of depicting Paul's sister as a 2-year-old with an advanced intellect, the film keeps Alia within Jessica's womb throughout. With that said, Anya Taylor-Joy does voice Alia's subconscious communications with Jessica and Paul. The film also simplified the romantic subplot between Paul and Chani, omitting the birth and subsequent loss of their first child, Leto II the Elder, which plays a poignant role in the book after the couple has been together for 2 years. This loss is a crucial moment that enrages Paul, later compounded by the birth of their twins, Ganima, and a second Leto II in Dune Messiah. I thought it was interesting how Dune 2 weaved Chani into the fabric of the Lisan al-Gaib prophecy more intricately than in the book. While the film acknowledges Chani's Fremen moniker Sahaya, meaning Desert Spring, rather than being a priestess like she is in the novel, here she's a Fedaykin. The sequel also reimagined Gurney Halleck's arc, deepening his vendetta against Glossu Rabban Harkonnen, the architect of his scars and family's demise. Unlike in the book, where Rabban's downfall is at the hands of the Fremen, Villeneuve grants Gurney the cathartic climax of exacting personal vengeance, though if I'm to be honest, his battle could have gone on a bit longer. Moreover, Dune 2 modifies the conclusion with significant changes in character fates, notably Baron Harkonnen's. Contrary to the novel, where Alia ends the Baron, the film gives the decisive act to Paul Atreides. This not only personalizes the confrontation, but also introduces a note of shame to the Baron's end, crafting a conclusion with intensified immediacy and retribution. It should also be noted that these films present a markedly different conclusion to Feyd-Rautha's story. The climactic duel avoids Feyd-Rautha's poisoned blades from the original in favor of a raw display of ferocity and combat prowess. It also culminates in Paul unexpectedly delivering a fatal blow to his cousin's abdomen, as opposed to striking him in the jaw and up into the brain like the novel. Perhaps the most significant departure occurs in Chani's narrative arc. After Paul's imperial coronation and his engagement to Urilan, Chani's dramatic exit into the desert by summoning a sandworm symbolizes her disillusionment and perceived betrayal by Paul. This emotional moment, absent from Herbert's narrative, leaves her fate ambiguous, hinting at her struggle with Paul's transformation and the prophecy. In Herbert's vision, Chani grapples with Paul's choices, yet finds a way to reconcile with them. Understanding the pragmatic necessity of his marriage to Urilan, in name only, she remained by his side as a concubine and the only woman that he loved. The film, however, leaves her stance towards Paul and their shared future enveloped in ambiguity, challenging the strength of their bond. Considering their 2 children, Ganima, and especially Leto II, who would become the God Emperor of Dune, play pivotal roles in the rest of the series, this just seemed bizarre to me. What I did appreciate, though, is the more nuanced portrayal of Fremen religiosity, depicting a division within their culture, with the North not believing in the prophecy, while those in the South did. This leans heavily on the zeal of Southern fundamentalists, rallying behind Paul as their messiah, a concept not explicitly defined in Herbert's original work. The edition, while not altering the core themes of religious fervor being weaponized, does adjust the narrative mechanics, spotlighting the Bene Gesserit's long game of seeding religious prophecies. The depiction of this, particularly the framing of Stilgar and his southerly compatriots as devout fanatics, presents a logistical rather than thematic departure. It maintains the eventual convergence of Paul at the helm of a fanatical army, yet exploring it through a slightly different lens than the book. Finally, in the concluding moments of Dune 2, a notable deviation emerges, with Gurney saying that the great houses refuse to acknowledge Paul's rise to emperor. In Herbert's original, Paul's menacing vow to obliterate the spice mines on Arrakis coerced both the Spacing Guild and the great houses into a reluctant acceptance of his ascendancy, but the film showcased their outright challenge to his authority, laying groundwork for potential conflicts in Dune 3. This not only added a layer of immediate political tension, but also hints at the broader machinations that might define the next chapter in the saga. With Denis Villeneuve revealing he'd almost finished writing the script for the adaptation of the next book in the series, Dune Messiah, and Hans Zimmer having already begun to score the music, depending on how well Part 2 does at the box office, it looks like we'll be getting a third film. I only hope that we don't get too many more deviations though, as there are certain key events that need to happen to ensure that Frank Herbert's vision for his 6-book series remains intact. I really enjoyed Dune Parts 1 and 2, and of course I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, so be sure to share what your takeaways from the film were. With that said, that's all for today folks. If there's anything else you'd like for me to cover on Dune, please don't hesitate to ask. As always, it's been a pleasure. Niyat here with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.
I just want to make sure that if we do Dune Messiah, that we have the best screenplay on the table, and for that I want to take the time to do it. If we do Dune Messiah, that we do I want to make the best movie ever, so I want to just take my time.